In 120 years of existence, Crystal Palace on Saturday won their first major trophy amid absolute scenes at Wembley, beating Man City in practically their second home. Now, today we are going to break down and dissect that monumental victory. We've seen some of the most heartwarming moments we've seen all season, and today we're going to go through it all. We are going to talk, of course, some of the controversy, some of the decisions in particular, how Palace pulled off the impossible, what this means for them, and of course, we are going to drink in some of the tears from our resident Man City fan, Jamie. On that note, let's get straight into it. Jamie, we know how angry and frustrated you were, obviously, on Saturday. Has some of the anger and disappointment subsided yet, or are you still absolutely fuming? Let us know your thoughts.
Well, my thought process hasn't changed in it. It was Palace did exactly what they wanted to do, and that was, they're going to hit you on a counter attack, have low percent possession, and get that goal, and then hang on. That might be a sort of like a strong word to use, sort of hang on, but that was the sort of the game plan. They were going to defend deep and defend well. That was their game plan, and that's exactly what happened. So for them, it's absolutely congratulations. And you've seen, like you said, with the scenes you saw in the sort of the videos after, I saw pictures after where it was the tifo that Palace had was of sort of a dad and two kids from years ago celebrating it, and I actually saw the two sons sort of crying over the tifo because their dad had passed away. So absolute heartful moments for them and everything in that way, and it's memories like that that make you love football. So in terms of that, it's well done, Palace. But from me, from a City point of view, I didn't care on the day. I still don't care now. I wanted us to win. That's as simple as that. In terms of us, our performance level overall just wasn't good enough. And I said it in my TikTok out there. I went, this is going to be a very low scoring game. Now, people obviously saw the 5-2 happen recently. I went, it's going to be nothing like that because one, there's going to be nerves involved. It's a final. Palace, not been many finals, hadn't won a major trophy until then. City had lost the final the year before and hadn't had a great season. So I thought it was going to be a bit more of a cagey, and this is kind of what had played out. But I think my main frustration, comes down to the red card decision that's not given. And you text me at the time saying it doesn't matter, you're going to win. Well, proves off we didn't. These things do matter, and if you get sent off in the 20th minute, they are 1-0 up Palace at this point. 70 minutes of 10 men matters massively. It doesn't matter if we're still attack versus defence for that whole time. 10 men is massive. And I've seen Wayne Rooney come out with it, Ian Wright. You've got the Sky Sports referee watch all coming out going, it's a red card. And that is a bitter pill to swallow from it. There's still no reason for me for them to go, oh, I can see why he's giving it and he's not given a red card. Because the argument initially was the ball's going away from the goal. The reason why it's going away from the goal is because he's palmed it out to there. And you can't say Haaland's not going to get a touch on the ball because he actually does just before Henderson palms it away and he's got an open goal. So there's no reason for that. But after that, our performance wasn't good enough. And that's why we didn't win on the day, because we still could beat Palace 1-0 down and them not having 10 men. But things like that do matter in these games. And I don't think it should just be brushed aside because one, it's nice to see Palace win. And two, at the time, your comment of you're going to win anyway. Things like that shouldn't matter. The rules are there. And I don't understand how, because I'm an advocate for VAR, but I don't understand how the referees can get it that wrong when, okay, you don't see it, the referee doesn't see it during the game, but you've got the video evidence, you've got the photos, it's so obvious.
Yeah, I do get the frustration, and I watched it back quite a few times. I think the only argument for it not being given, and I assume this is why they ultimately didn't give it. I mean, the still image obviously just looks ridiculous. Like clearly he's handled it outside the box. So either way, we know it's free kick on the edge of the box at the very least. The debate is whether it's a red or not, right? And if you watch it in full time at the original TV angle, and I can't remember what they said on or the VAR justification for it, but the defender basically, it's hard to explain without a clip, but basically, Haaland is going wide at the same rate that the defender's going back towards the box. So I think if it played out personally and Haaland touches the ball instead of Henderson, he's got a shot at goal clearly, but there would have been a defender on the line.
No,
And
so I have to stop that. I can't be having this crap narratives because if you look at the still image when he handballs it away, both defenders are behind Haaland. They're
yeah, but the
behind
touch is
Haaland.
going wide. That's the
No, no,
thing.
no.
It's not going straight to goal.
No, the touch from the keeper's going wide.
Yeah,
Haaland's
but
initial
Haaland,
touch goes straight. His initial
yeah, but
he
he's
brings the
not
ball
getting past Henderson, is he? So either way, the ball's
without
going to
his
go
hands there.
slightly
Yes,
right.
he is.
No, but he worse. Let's say Henderson doesn't touch it.
Yeah, it goes past Henderson, and Haaland's gonna beat him.
But Haaland's not jumping over him, is it? Haaland would have gone through him.
Well, then it's
So
a
if
it's a
he
red card either way. Then
no, but I'm saying if he
if he
touches the
goes
to get round Henderson, he
yeah,
has to have a touch to the right hand side,
and then you're
basically.
saying Henderson will block him. It's really what you're saying, and then that's another red card. Like
Yeah, but
either way,
for
it's
it
a
to be
goal
a goal
scoring
scoring
opportunity.
chance, yeah, but for it to be a goal scoring chance, obviously you've got to play it out as if like what Haaland's going to do.
Yeah, which is
And I
touch it
do
forward
think,
and go past Henderson. The ball's going past Henderson because if it doesn't, his hand doesn't need to be in that position. It will go past
yeah,
Henderson, and then if Henderson blocks Haaland, say Haaland physically can't jump over him, he gets sent off for blocking Haaland and denying a goal scoring opportunity.
yeah. I mean, either way, I do get the frustration, but
It's
yeah, if it
touching
was the other way around, I'd
short,
be fuming. But I'm just saying that's why they didn't give it. That's what I think personally. But
which is utter crap. It's utter nonsense.
so let's assume it is the wrong decision,
Well,
and
the decision was made because Haaland, they believe that Haaland was not, was not denied a clear goal scoring opportunity. They should have been given a free kick. Yes, they should have done. Of course, a goalkeeper handling a ball outside the box is not an automatic red. This is an example of we moan that they sit and over analyze VAR, and then we all sit and over analyze these decisions anyway ourselves. That before we go on to the next point, the 4 points they had to consider, just to break it down for you in layman's terms, the distance between obviously the offence and the goal, direction of the play, likelihood of gaining control of the ball or keeping it, and then of course the distance and number of defenders. So the argument was is look, Lacroix had sprinted back to cover already. That's the argument. They've given it, and there you go. Just thought I'd throw that out there. However, not
It's
getting the
not there
free
you go
kicks
though, is it?
is
It's
what
not.
I'm surprised about because that should have been a free kick at
Yeah,
the
but they
very
can't
least.
they can't go and give a free
yeah,
kick because the referee's not seen it in like
yeah, because if
in the
yeah,
current time. So that's where like referee's not seen it. Fine, he's not in the angles that videos have to see it. So that I don't have a problem with. During the game, I thought Haaland because I'm at the other end. I thought Haaland had won the ball and gone out wide. That's what I thought had happened. But then when they're checking for VAR, I just don't understand with any of the sort of four reasons you put there. There's still none of the reasons that they're right in their decision. You can say I'm biased for being a City fan, but you've got ex Crystal Palace saying there while he's loving it in Ian Wright. You've got Rooney there. Rooney doesn't want to see us win. Like it's just, and then you got the like I said with Sky Sports, an ex referee going against the referee. You know it's bad when that happens. They're always biased for what the referee's decision is. I just think I understand with the whole context of the game. Like I've said, City's performance wasn't good enough, but this was such a clear and obvious error from VAR, and everyone's reaction, if that was the other way around, would be calling corruption. They'd be saying City paid the refs. It's things like that would be coming out, and it's not one or two people. I think even Mark Goldbridge said that's a red card. It's people. It's obvious, and I don't understand how referees can get it so wrong with video evidence. Video evidence. The on this field decision, I can understand why he's not seen it, but the rest of it is just complete rubbish, and that's the problem people have with VAR. I think because VAR's not wrong, it's the people watching the videos.
I think there will always be maybe less so on that decision. There will always be some degree of subjectivity in it. I think that's the ultimate problem. Because even with the pen, to be honest, even with the pen you got, I and a lot of other people thought it was soft because he touches the ball. Obviously, Jamie, you're going to say it's a pen, but Reece, you said you thought it was a pen, and it's like
Yeah,
even
well,
in that, I know it's a different level, but even that is hard because people are still disagreeing because he touches the ball, but he also takes Silver out, and you've seen them not given as much as you've seen him given. And I don't think if he doesn't give a pen, it doesn't get overturned. So again, it's like maybe the first one with the red card is a little bit more obvious or a bit more controversial, but there's always going to be a degree of subjectivity in football, and I think that is VAR. For that reason, VAR can't ever be perfect.
It, it's like I said, I'm pro VAR. I think VAR's fine for football. It's the referees have got to get the decisions right. They have all the angles now. There's very much margin for error, and in decisions like this, just shouldn't be getting it wrong. Basically, in terms of the penalty, my biggest sort of advocate for it was watch Mitchell's reaction to the penalty being given. He doesn't react in terms of why have you given that. He sort of like go. He sort of it's like he goes inside himself like, oh, I've messed up. Because one, you shouldn't be sliding in the box like that. I think just as a defending point of view, whether he wins the ball, doesn't win the ball, in any aspect, you're asking for a penalty or to nearly give away a penalty. That was his mistake, but effectively it doesn't matter because the person who saves it should have been sent off 5-10 minutes ago, and that makes it worse. Because like Henderson said in his interview afterwards, I knew where Marmoush was going. I knew Marmoush was going. We had about 7 or 8 people around us. 3 of us all said he's going to that exact side. It was quite an obvious one with that. But
Well, let's just touch on that quickly because
yeah.
before we talk about Palace, we've got to talk about how good Palace were before we just talk about City. But and I have a gripe with this. Jamie, you might feel differently. Erling Haaland, one of the best strikers in the world, unbelievable, ridiculous goal machine, everything. Why on earth is your big striker, one of the best in the world, in a final, and your penalty taker, by the way? Why is he shying away from taking a penalty? That is not good enough. Like, it's just not.
Um, to be honest, it's more of a question that only Haaland can answer. The problem is, I actually said in my TikTok, I think we're going to get a penalty, and Haaland gives it to De Bruyne. So I actually thought he was just going to give it to him just for the sort of sentimental reasons, not. But he gave it to Marmoush, and Marmoush seems the type of player that will sort of go around going, "I want this penalty." And what also you see nowadays is someone else will hold the ball before the penalty, but let the decision be correct, like the VAR to check it, and then they give it to someone else. I do agree, though, Jordan, that I want my striker, my main striker, to be taking the penalty. Or whoever my main penalty taker is to do it, because we're 1-0 down at the point as well. It's a final. Go and score. That's what you're paid to do, so go and do it. So I do agree with you on that. But you do see it weirdly in certain places where a player goes up going, I really want this penalty. And sometimes they give it to him. But I'm like he's missed, so that makes it worse. If that makes sense. If Marmoush scores it,
Yeah.
the point is invalid, and people don't really talk about it. But I do overall, I want
Yeah.
Haaland to be taking my penalties because he's my penalty taker.
Yeah.
It's as
It
simple
kind
as
of just, yeah, it kind of just suggests a lack of confidence. I don't know what other reason it would be. But if you're a striker with that audacity, that confidence, you are taking that penalty
My
10
only other
times out of 10.
thing, which to be honest, I don't think impacts his penalty. I think he should still take it. I don't think he is 100% fit. I think we've rushed him back. I think we rushed him back against Southampton a bit, but and we probably expected to be 3-0 up against Southampton and end up being a 0-0 draw where we got 60 minutes and come off. It was a given minute, and then it's an FA Cup final. I want my striker starting, so that's the argument there, really. but it's not good enough either way. I still,
Yeah.
I've done it myself where I've played. I'm a bit injured, and I was the penalty taker. I still took the penalty. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's if you
Haaland.
can't
Don't
take a
get me
penalty, you're not
wrong.
on the pitch. You're in the injury room. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I
no,
don't
no.
buy that. I think it is concerning for City personally. We'll see what happens in the next two games, but I don't know. It suggests something deeper could be there, but we'll never know, I guess.
I
And we've
think
got to
should.
say, by the way, I don't actually think it was a bad pen. I think that Henderson, credit to him again, unbelievable save more than a bad penalty. So it's one of them. Let's move on because we've got to talk about Palace. I mean, we all, I think all three of us had pretty good predictions for Palace at the start of the season. Glasner obviously really ended last season on a high. They managed to keep, obviously they lost to Lise, but did manage to keep some key players. Eze, Mateta. Again, we've been waxing lyrical about how good they've been this season. But everyone forgets I think they didn't win for the first 8 games in the Prem. So they were in a relegation battle. And again, in football these days, many teams would have just sacked him. So how much credit, I guess, do Palace deserve for one, actually sticking with the manager for a change and not just losing their heads, but also for getting to this point and actually winning? Because it's just insane what they did. I know City had an off day, whatever, but it's still an incredible achievement.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of clubs would have probably maybe pulled the trigger, but I think people forget that Glasner is a Europa League winner with Frankfurt. He's not a small, he's not a untried and tested coach. Um, I never panicked when they sort of lost those first few games and couldn't grind out a win because they'd had a bit of upheaval. They lost, Anderson, for example, a couple of players like that, try to rejig a couple of things, get the system right. And a coach is supposed to coach you. So you can't necessarily get it done overnight. And then it started to tweak. Yes, I still think they've lost pretty silly games throughout the season, but the performances in the FA Cup have been second to none. They went to Fulham and absolutely dismantled them. Let's not forget that, how good they were in that game. So there's been an upward improvement, a very good improvement actually. We could talk about, obviously Glasner said he was going to work out how Pep plays and solve it. Pep, of course, went for a 3-5-2, which I thought was a bit odd, and they exploited the fact that City didn't have a natural number six in there because they were pinging balls up to Mateta with ease, and Munoz had a great game as well. Let's not forget that. Generally, the whole squad performed. Richards was fantastic. They gave it like they were never going to get another chance in a final, So it has to be a credit of what Glasner has worked with because he's brought together a squad that on paper is good and talented, but it's not been able to take that next step, and that's exactly what he's done by winning an FA Cup. 12th in the league or wherever they are, you might still be a bit disappointed with that, but you shouldn't be because you've made progress in that side of things. So it's all about foundations, I suppose, from here going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, how many times, right, have we said, and I think we've referenced Crystal Palace so many times we're making this point. We do podcasts about the FA Cup. Is the cup dead? Is the magic of the cup dead? Obviously, this proves for me, and I've said it all along, it isn't dead because of moments like this. But for Palace, we've said, and it's a bit of a joke, they've finished mid-table, they're boring, they've got nothing to play for. It must be so boring as a Palace fan. Like, why do clubs not go for this? Like, I do not understand why players are being rested. And obviously, in Palace's case, it didn't happen. But why are these mid-table teams resting players in the FA Cup? I know there's a financial element to it, but Palace are 12th in the league, absolutely safe. And this will be the biggest moment in the entire history of the club. Those fans, you saw clips of it, 60, 78 years old, never thought they'd die before they see Palace win a trophy. So why are clubs not putting more emphasis on this? I
It
don't understand it.
it comes down to um, the way the game's changed. If you look on the continent, for example, winning your equivalent of the FA Cup isn't necessarily seen as the achievement. It is for some teams, but it's not because the league and of course the European competitions take precedent. That's where the money are. The FA Cup being the main talking point of a season, being after a season, being everything that everyone looks for, is done because the Premier League has evolved since then and the Champions League has evolved since then. And with foreign owners, foreign players, there isn't as much of an attachment. Yes, a trophy is a trophy, but there's not as much of an attachment. That's not a criticism. That's just reality. Football fans want to still talk about the magic, but things will change. Competitions evolve. Competitions come and go. There was a Matroma Cup, whatever it's called, before the European Cup become a thing. So things will evolve and things will change. It's just down to money and finances. And what would you rather have if you were in Bournemouth's situation at the moment as an owner? £6 million more, finish a couple of places up, or an FA Cup? You'd say FA Cup for the silverware, but that also comes with consequences of you're not exactly going to attract a higher caliber of player, are you? Because of that. So
Thing is on that, I honestly, I kind of disagree. And obviously it depends on the amount of money, right? We're talking, if it's 100 mil, everyone will, whatever. But if it is 5 million more, I guarantee you right now, if you go and ask Steve Parish, would you have rather finished 5 places higher in the league and maybe got, let's say, I don't know, I'm just making up numbers, but maybe 5, 10 mil more than that moment on Saturday? I am very confident he would have said that moment on Saturday. There's some things in life money can't buy, and that moment for all those Palace fans and Parish, I think, is that 100 mil. Maybe it's one of those debates, right? But I do think other clubs should start be looking at what happened to Palace and go, you know what, we're going to go for it next year. We want to be like that. We want to have that moment.
it's winnable the big teams disregard it. The Carabao Cup becomes more of a winnable trophy when this top six don't look at it. It's that simple. It's not. There's not going to be this dynasty of underdogs winning the FA Cup going forward. Those days do not happen. Yes, it happened on Saturday, but it's not going to be a consistent theme.
Look, I think the reason why some clubs don't do it is sort of the money point of view. Because we're talking about it from a fan's point of view. And I was talking to some Palace fans before the game in the pub, and they asked me, from my point of view, they went, what would you rather do? Get Champions League football or win the FA Cup? And to be honest, it was torn between us who were with. I said win the FA Cup because I don't know when the last time I'm going to see my team win silverware. I've been very fortunate, very lucky for these past sort of, 10 to 15 years. Been very lucky in what I've seen because, the past 40 odd years before that, we'd won sod all. Things like that do matter, and I think we're looking at it more of a fan perspective. And I think we should always look at it from a fan perspective because that's what keeps what Jordan you're saying with the magic of the FA Cup. It's not about the teams, it's not about the clubs anymore. The clubs winning the FA Cup is nice, it's lovely, having that great day out, having the memories. But if they get relegated next season, Palace, the owners will be like, if we only had a bit more money and bought this player and kept us up. I know I'm talking fictitious,
I was
theoretical.
going to say, I don't think they'd care. I honestly don't.
Well, no, no,
I
no.
honestly
I
believe
think the
they'd rather that.
fans, the fans wouldn't. The fans
Oh,
wouldn't.
okay,
I'm
right,
talking
yeah,
about the club side of it. The club side of it
yeah.
would, because if you ask a Wigan fan, what was your greatest day? What was your greatest day? They'd be like the FA Cup final. Once again,
Yeah.
I've watched a team do that and lose again. But it's things like that. It matters so much to the fans.
The only
You saw the crowd what they were like, but the clubs
reality
are
is it
different.
matters. The reality is it matters to the generation now. If you ask someone, when was it? 2013, Wigan run it, right? So if you were born then, you'd be 12 now. If you ask a 12-year-old Wigan fan now, they're not going to say that. They weren't there.
Yeah, of course.
They're going to say, oh, we've been lingering around League One for God knows how long. Whereas the older Wigan fans go, oh, I wouldn't change those days. It will change. You know, that's it. It's just a generational thing. But at the moment, they're not going to change it.
So
But if they
just
don't
sort
see
of,
any progression on the pitch,
yeah.
there's going to be an argument for that, isn't it?
I think just quickly we need to talk a bit more about Palace's performance, really, because I think we have obviously I've moaned a lot about the decision of the red cards, and we've talked about whether winning a trophy, coming in whatever position is better. But you do have to look at it and go. Palace conceded one goal this FA Cup run. That was to Millwall. One goal they conceded.
I didn't even know that. That is
Like
incredible.
it's an unbelievable achievement. It's not like I can moan about the red card decision, whatever. It's not that Palace, like I can moan about it from my point of view, but it doesn't mean I don't think Palace deserve to win it and it's not great for them to win it. They were brilliant throughout the tournament. Like they had tough games in it. Like people didn't expect them to get through Fulham, didn't expect them to get through Villa, didn't expect them to get through us, kind of thing. come up and just gone, no, we're going to try and win, we're going to perform, and they did perform. It doesn't matter. Like, you can look at the other percentages of 21% possession, does not matter. They had two shots on target the whole game that come within 5 minutes of each other. It was the goal and about a minute or two after the goal. It doesn't matter. They got the goal. It would have been a completely different game. Let's say Eze accidentally puts that wide, for example. It is a bit of a different game, but it show for them they got the goal. They knew the game plan. Yes, they conceded the penalty. That wouldn't have been ideal, but they performed very, very well. And I think that we shouldn't overlook that. I'm not saying we are, but I think we should touch back on it, on how good Palace have been throughout the whole sort of competition and are, well, in the end, deserves winners. Despite as I still think and will moan about the red card for however I want, how long I want to.
Well, let's take that point to kind of conclude in terms of what this means, because this is obviously a monumental. We've said how much it means to Palace. I think the real question for Palace fans now is what is next? Is this going to be a stepping stone? Because it means Europa League football, which is, again, absolutely incredible for Palace and a real opportunity to go on an actual adventure. But at the minute, you'd argue they're good enough to compete in the Europa League. So do you guys think now we're going to see a real stepping stone? Or is Palace just going to fade away into 12th place every year?
You have to hope so. But as I hate to be a real downer, negative, like I have been talking about, just now. The reality is the modern game is the modern game. We've seen it with Dortmund. We've seen it with Monaco. A bit of success comes at a cost. The Sharks are going to swim. The rumours were Mark Gee was going to be going in the summer anyway. We can probably sure bet that's only pushed that over the line. Mateta, man, money on him. Why wouldn't a big club go for him now? Eze, yes, he's had an injury record. Again, going to be attractive to players, teams. Oliver Glasner as well. Is he going to turn down a top six side if they come calling? Is he going to turn down, a top Bundesliga side if they come calling, particularly in Europe? It's going to be difficult. I hope that they say no and stay firm, because if they do, yes, they'll compete in the Europa League and they'll probably get a top eight in the Premier League as a result in the Europa. So they have to. I hope for the sake of the game they do, but we see it too many times. Clubs just sell the best players and they rinse and repeat, and eventually it comes back to haunt them. I hope it doesn't happen to them because we see it too much, and I hope that the big clubs instead look elsewhere. Because you can't have teams like Palace doing all the hard work for you and getting all those players when they're available to you. I hope so, but I just think there's going to be some sales coming in because the money is too good to turn down.
I think the biggest issue is really the way that it can impact you in the league. You've seen it sort of like 2 seasons ago, Newcastle got Champions League football. They dropped off in the season. Didn't have Champions League football this season. They've kicked on a bit. It can happen to teams when they're not used to it. Brighton, I think, as well, didn't have they could have had probably a better season in the league if they didn't have Europa when they were there. But for Palace fans, they're going to enjoy it. And I think actually it's a great time to get into Europa for them, because none of the Champions League teams drop down into it anymore. So you find out what teams are left in it and you look at them and go, we've got a chance. If, 16th and 17th in the Premier League are in the final, Spurs United, why can't Palace? So I think I think the fans wise, they should just enjoy it. Doesn't matter if they do sell some of these players, but overall, I think it's a great time for them, and they'll have a great time on the trips, away day trips.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the moment. Parish, obviously, there was a bit of drama in the summer, of course, with Parish maybe not having a centre back with the likes of Gurley, Chalobah going as well. So I've got a feeling, as you say, Reece, they will lose some players as a result of this, which will be a shame. But as I said, for Palace fans, you've had the greatest moment in your history. Lap it up and enjoy it, and hopefully you can compete in Europe. And again, you'll have some money if you do sell these players, maybe to reinvest. So I guess it comes down to whether Parish wants to do that or pocket some of the money. But that's all we got time for on this episode. Palace fans, if you made it this far, of course, let us know your thoughts. What do you think you'll do in Europa next season? But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.